So not trying to run what you said down because what you said was true. And there are a lot of things that are in the midst of changing when it comes to like patronism when it comes among black businesses. I'm starting to see more communal organizations that are more inclined to support black business and patronize more black business. I'm inclined to believe now, because of the masses and the numbers in this room, that the cycle for thinking that education was weak is being broken by so many familiar faces I see that look just like mine. I'm also in the process of believing and understanding that hope is not a figment of my imagination, but something that I can achieve and accomplish as long as I'm willing to do the work. Okay, having said that, I'm gonna let Coach.
Well,
then we're gonna use her.
Oh, I was just saying I'm all good.
I just want to say that being from Africa, this trying to figure out your masculinity, it may be exclusively an African American problem or other. Hold on, or other like African slave descendants such as like Brazil and Caribbeans and all that, because being in Africa, I was never confused about masculinity. We never like pondered about it because we knew what it was. But here in America, African Americans trying to figure that out. It may be because the history and problem that still lingers on. In Africa, we did not ponder that, and we can find out real quick. But here in America, African Americans are like pondering this until their adulthood. So that's all I'm trying to say. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and that's the point we'll take it, and then I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna let Emmanuel speak, and then I'm gonna call on Ramon. As far as from what you said, that there may be a certain amount of truth, or it's your complete truth. But the thing about it is, there's also a misconception of masculinity. I know quite a few people from the motherland are African, and their form of masculinity is keeping their foot on their wife's neck, keeping them pregnant and barefooted in the kitchen. To not educate them. For a lot of African men, that's their form of masculinity, to assume the head and the dominant role in the household, and that's it. Okay, to me, that's a problem with masculinity. And it's not only in Africa, it's here too. But it's also a way of life or the way you view life. Okay, you said you never had a problem with identifying with masculinity. Well, maybe your form of masculinity may be hard for other people to fathom. This being cultural to you more than anything else. This is what you saw your dad do. Traditionally, from that type of environment, you don't question anything. You just assume the role or assume that that's correct. But had you asked some questions, or should you ask questions, your definition of masculinity may change. Maybe you haven't reached that point that you think you are right now, or maybe you may hear something that may cause you to change your opinion of what masculinity actually is. Emmanuel and then Ramon.
So, what it is for me personally is, well, my father wasn't around, and my father is pretty much a career criminal. So I couldn't look to my father for that help in becoming a man, because he himself didn't even know how to fully be a man. So I had to begin defining what masculinity was for me as an individual. It wasn't playing sports, it was more of becoming a figure that was noteworthy, or someone who my nephews could look up to, that they could depend on, and that would set the standard at a high level, so that they too would have to reach a high level of success. And it necessarily, my form of masculinity is not. It was never about. It's never been about sex. It's been about what can I push out of myself, what can I give to myself and my role in my community to make me to make my community better. Therefore, it makes me better. So it's like we're pushing and pulling each other to the top. And that's what it was for me. That's when, like, my nephews were born, and I was like, wow, their dad ain't around. So then it became like, now I have to step up to the road. Either I can fall into something, a road that I already seen ahead of me, take the wisdom that going left is not right. And if I go right, it's not going to be right. And the only way I can go is straight ahead. That would work for me, and I could lead my nephews down the road where I would have to pave my own road. So I have to define my own version of masculinity, because my goals and my views and the way I see the world is different from everyone. And if I put myself in your shoes and I try to walk a mile in them, I would never fully be the man that I'm supposed to be under those conditions. And as what he said about Africa, I mean, you might, in a long time ago, those cultural values might have been passed down to you. So you don't even know what those cultural values were based off of. So you haven't even defined it for you. I believe as an individual, we all have to come, as individual men and women, we have to come into defining it for ourselves, not what someone else tells us as individuals. You know, to each his own path, and you have to trailblaze your own road. It's not about stepping on your wife's neck. It's not about selling drugs. It's not about having sex. It's not about living a lavish life. It's about choosing a path that sets you where you want to be. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna touch on something with Kojo, but you know what I like that you just said, Emmanuel, because I was gonna say something in regards to that when you said men and women. Like, I think like masculinity is a misled emotion. We actually believe that it sticks for just one gender. Like, we like to believe that masculinity is sort of formed like this identity around men. Like and now targeting African American men due to the circumstances, but everybody experiences masculinity. Women do as well. It's an emotion that you go through based off of certain situations. We've turned it into a situation to believe that only men carry this type of thing called masculinity because of, unfortunately, throughout history, we've subjected people to believe that men are more dominant, I guess, than women, and sort of put women on the back burner due to that whole idea of masculinity being like that. And as far as what you said, Kojo, I can understand where you come from. Your viewpoint, you have some good points to pull out, but a lot of it is misled because of the idea that masculinity deals with African Americans because it's publicized. We just looked at a website the other day that a guy who happens to be a white man puts on blogs about all of the negative and misled things that African Americans over North do. From them getting killed or killing someone, getting arrested consistently, selling drugs, throwing up gang signs, this continuous thing. So the reason why we get that idea that we had this problem with understanding, the only ones that had this problem with understanding masculinity is because it's publicized more than any other culture or race, in America at least. But everybody has this problem one way or another. You have people that are of Caucasian descent that deal with this, and I mentioned the military earlier on how you got to be tough. This follows a trend with everybody. You understand? I was looking because I did a paper about something, but I wanted to just explain the definition of potential because this all has to deal with the human being and understanding what potential is from a negative and positive standpoint. And it says potential. This is the definition of it: having or showing a capacity to develop into. It says having or showing a capacity to develop into something in the future. And a synonym for that for potential is possible and eventually. You understand what I'm saying? So when you're looking at this, trying to understand masculinity, humans have potential for this. You understand what I'm saying? So eventually we all are going to experience this. We all have experienced this. This is not something that I want people to understand that is just subject to guys. It's just or men or African American men. It's just been publicized like that, and it's been created socially to believe that we experience that alone. But like I said, it's a misled emotion. Everybody experiences masculinity. It's a form of showing who you are, and it could be an aggressive way, but women get aggressive too. And I would love for any of the women in here to speak up on this. Everybody does. We just like to label that name with men.
I'm saying that.
Thank you. Just hold on one second. We're gonna ask that you allow yourself to be recognized by hands, okay? Sugar, you had something to say, then we're gonna bring it back to the panel.
I was gonna say, I don't know, there's just a lot of things that go along with being a woman in this society, and it can get boring after a while. After you've reached a point of intelligence where you don't care what makeup you wear, you don't care what clothes you have on, you don't care what you used to do to feel attractive, you don't care anymore. And you don't want to hold on to that. And, there's a lot with homosexuality, and I'm still exploring mine, to be honest, because I used to have so many judgments against homosexuality because I was raised to think that way. But now I'm discovering, we all have it. We all go through masculine phases. We all have attraction to something that is the most natural. And, just letting down judgments is so much better for me to figure that out and grow as a person rather than hold on to what society is placing on me as a woman.
Dr. Mason and then Ronnie, and then we're gonna end this subject topic with the brother right here, and then we're gonna have to move on for it.
Well, what I want to say is I was disagreeing with the brother is by a lot of masculinity, just as feminine, is socially constructed. That's why we have culture that have sex roles that says women do this and men do that. And we have been fooled to think that it's natural. And education allows you to critically think about those things. When I say that, it's not so much natural, because how do you define natural? Biology tells us that men are XY and women are XX. But we don't talk about XXY or XYY or XXXY or all of those different things that come into it. And what does that necessarily mean? Because even if you're born, whatever you're born, you come into this world and the world has already constructed what it means to be a male or what it is to be a female, because your mother will either buy pink or she'll buy blue. And so all of those things, but we think it's a natural tendency when we have not really even begun to ponder. And so, Kojo, when we talk about pondering black male masculinity, what we're doing is taking time out, which we have not been allowed to historically in this society. In the 1950s, 60s, with feminist movement, then we got the queer study movement going on, but black men have not been allowed the space to redefine who we are. Women have been able to redefine, even though there's a long way to go. When we talk about the gay rights movement and queer studies, which I have no problem with, they are publishing more. And the ones that are publishing on masculinity are white males who continue to have the power and continue to run 95% of the corporation, which was displayed through Senate and the Congress that we particularly look at. But black men have not allowed, because as soon as we walk into any door, we are seen as black first and men second. And so we have not been allowed to define who we are and what masculinity. I actually like to use the word masculinity because there's more than one definition. And the whole idea of these kind of forums is to come to, is there some kind of consensus where we can represent it all to allow every person to be empowered and fulfill their potential. And it still comes again about education is not weak, but education allows you to critically think about those particular issues to help your community realize its full potential. And I'm a spiritual and I'm a scientist at all, because what my scientific background allows me to explore my God. And I don't separate the difference between the two, because that means I know I can be wrong. But I can accept other people's opinion. I have a father and I had a grandfather who was very strict about what it meant to be a man. And as I was telling them yesterday, my father did everything that he thought, because he never had a father. He took care of the home. But when I was 8 or 9 years old, I told my dad, I said, Dad, you'll never spend time with me. Up to that point, he thought being a man was taking care of your household. And after I said that, he was like, you know what, you're right. I need to spend more time with you. Because I appreciated the gifts and having a roof over my head, but I'll never forget rolling around in the grass playing football with my dad. Or having him hug me when I felt I'd been at my worst. Because it's his words that when my girlfriend got pregnant in college, I knew my mother gonna say it's okay, but it was my father who made me feel better about being able to continue in the school and said it's okay to continue in the school, and you can do both, take care of your family and continue through school. And that came from my father.
And I think
that's part of the issue as a father is that, you know, a lot of us with sons are allowing women to raise our sons. And I don't knock women. You know, I was raised by a strong black woman, but she could never raise me to be a strong black man. She can raise me to her idea of what a strong black man is, but until she wakes up with a penis, she has no idea. Because she wakes up every day as a black woman. You know what I'm saying? Her barriers and everything is so separate from mine. Because the world is against me. The world will give her a little something just so she can be against me as well. You draw what I'm saying? And this is the issue. We have so many, and I don't mean this to be sexist to the sisters, but we have so many. Everybody's trying to identify us, even our own women, and they haven't even defined what it is to be a black woman. So how can you define what it is for me to be a black man when you ain't never woke up and been one? And these same people, these same women are raising our sons. They don't know how to raise them to be a man. You don't understand what I'm saying? And that's part of the whole issue why a lot of the youth are so misguided about what it is to be a man. Just to even think about what it is to be masculine. They have no concept because women are based off emotions. They're emotional beings. Men are not. That's a conflict of interest. You're raising a man to deal with things from a point of view that he can't even see. And he don't even realize it till he's in the penitentiary, till he's whooping his baby mama. So, you know what I'm saying? That's part of the bigger issue for me, because it's a lot of fathers in here, and we're just not raising our sons. You know what I'm saying? Like Dr. Mason said, it's not about buying your son a North Face coat, some Coogee pants. When's the last time you hugged your son, rolled in the grass like Dr. Mason said, to play football with your son? You know what I'm saying? I think that's part of the, you know, the larger issue, is that we're just not raising our men. They're not, they don't, like your brother said, they can't even, they can't interpret it because they haven't seen it.
Yeah. Thank you,
Hey.
everyone who made that. Okay, we're gonna have a close, we're gonna have a closing comment by the door right here.
Okay.
Then for the sixth time, we're gonna have to move on.
Right.
However interesting it is, I know it's really powerful. We're just gonna have to take another bite and move on to the next piece.
Okay. Well, I just need some help with defining, what masculinity is, what it means, and, where did it come from? How does, because that would be in that word is sort of shadowing what a good person should be, or what a good person is. So I'm kind of confused on masculinity. Like, what exactly does that mean to be masculine?
Remember, masculinity, like as I said, is social constructed, and most of the literature would say it is a social construction and behavior by which the culture says men should carry themselves.
But okay, so
So there's no strict definition of what it means, because it means different things from different cultures.
okay,
And different cultures have different roles in which it says, so you can't particularly define it in that faction, but what we can do is develop core values around what it particularly means that still allow people to define it for themselves. Because once again, there's limitations in language. And once you strictly define something, then you expect people to do what conform to.
all right. So Doc, and I hear what you're saying, but if it's a social construction, and masculinity has been framed, from the oppressors, then how do we penetrate that? Like, what's the next step, and how do we get past that lie?
These are the discussions, and that's what we're progressing toward. What we're going to do next semester is we have to have these discussions first. Before we begin writing these particular type of narrative, because again, the narrative is still to speak to masculinities, plural.
Right.
Than one idea of masculinity. Because anytime you have one definition of masculinity, somebody's alienated. For a white man, it may be to what? Maintain what they already have and the power they have. For African American, as I perceive it, African American male, it is to go higher so I can take care of my family and give back to my community. And so there's a difference, because I can't see myself as an individual because I have too much responsibility. That wherever I go, I take my culture with me. That I don't walk in a room and strip my skin off or strip anything off, because I have to take that with me. But I don't want them just to see my face. They need to see all of our faces when we walk into a room.
That's right.
And so when we talk about the social construction, you really can't narrow it down. But what you can do is begin to engage the community, come up with a conceptual version of what's the core value, and then we can hold each other accountable as men and women of what those values are.
And one other thing I'd like to add to that, and then we're gonna close out with brother. I know you got something, I know you got powerful shit. So true, because more often than not, when it comes to the definition of masculinity, we as a race of people, or being people of color, still govern ourselves to the standards that were set to us by those of European descent.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, so keeping in mind that we're not them, we've never been them, and we never will be them, that means we need to govern ourselves to a completely different code of laws, standards, and morals.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, as strong men and women. And as long as we continue to govern ourselves by those standards, we'll continue to be exactly what they want us to be. A form of degradation, living our lives in a form of degradation, never not really coming to the full understanding of who we are, and always being confused about our role in our household, our role in the community, and our role generally as masculine male figures in our children and our families' lives.
Wow.
Okay, so having said that, we're gonna close with this brother right here. Not to discount or not to say that what you guys haven't had is important, but we're trying to make our way back around.
Yeah, I was just watching the faces and the reaction of people while this was being discussed. This is not a male versus male versus female conversation. It's not. It's inclusive of everyone. example, and I'm gonna go on, because the next one is, what is the difference between cross generations? So I can bring this in, it's a segue into what I'm gonna say now. And that is, I got 4 boys right now, but they're in a blended relationship. My ex married another man. Now, I had to help my children work through that transitional period of grieving. I was grieving because I was torn away from my family. And my children were grieving because they were torn away from me. But I still had to be a father even though I was not in the house. So what I had to do was I had to help them make that transition the same time I was making the transition. That was stand in their life. People would say, well, when are you gonna start supporting your kids? I'm going to school every day, I'm homeless, and I got my kids on my mind, and I'm going through a grieving process. I said, the best thing that I can give my children right now is me. That's right. Me is the best thing that I can give them.
All right.
That's what they need more than anything else. I see people like Paris Hilton and everything, and people like that, when they finally die or when they tell the truth, they say, my father gave me all this, but all I wanted was him. All I wanted was that time with him. It didn't mean about all the thousands of dollars and nothing they gave him. And see, that's one of the things that the black male and the black woman hadn't had, was that father figure in the household. See, it took 2 to raise children. That's right. It don't take no one parent to raise a child, it takes 2. You're missing something. You need that feminine side, you need that masculine side. You need that leadership. If I only got a woman, I don't know how to deal with a man when I run into men. If you're young women, you don't know how to deal because you take on mama's stuff. But anyway, that's right. The difference between the cross generations is something happened when I was young, like you guys. And probably some of you guys are young in here. But they started feeding us all this information. The movies, they had what they call the bad nigger movies. It started dealing with our psyche. Oh, this is what it is. I want to be super fresh.
Right.
I want to be Freddie's Dead. I want to be all this. You know what I mean? I want to be Sugarfoot. All these guys. You know what I mean? Shaft. I want to be all that. That was telling us who we supposed to be. You're black. They sitting up there. They got everything that we want. But they doing everything that we're not supposed to do. But it's feeding us information that was not given to us before, or information that should have been given me. I was 14 years old. Experience is the best teacher. I was 14 years old, and I was saying to myself, who am I? What am I supposed to be? You know what I mean? I need somebody to help me understand who I am. I knew at 14 who I was. I became a drug addict at 14 years old because there was something going on in me. And the world was telling me this will deal with it. The difference between you and I is you're the end result of what started with us. You're the end result. Because media is still telling you who you are. I see brothers walk down the street, blah, 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 to themselves. And people are walking by and looking at it. It's almost like a mantra. It's almost like they lost their mind in the world. You know what I mean? They don't see nobody going past them. They're just mumbling words over and over and over and over and over and over, or banging on something. It's all right to be instrumental, but it's another thing to be caught up. With that, I'll just move it on.
You know what? Something that's bothering me right now, Ben. You've been tripping with me since I came in here, brother. And while I'm trying to talk, you steady raising your head. Raise it again, man. I'm gonna break it off to your shoulder. All right?
Who you talking
That's
about?
who I thought I was.
The response that happens all the
And you see Ben's response?
Okay.
All the
Who am I? Generationally, that's who I was brought up as. My generation, the bigger you are, the better you are. I'm a fat rat, smoking on a fat sack. Enough talking past the cognac. Okay, bottom line is, Ben, thank you for your participation in that. But now see, the thing about it is, more often than not, we get masculinity associated with ego.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so masculinity is more often than not associated with ego. Ego is what? It's a false sense of pride and an abnormal sense of being or belonging. Anytime as a man, I feel like I'm being threatened, my ego or my image is being threatened, it's natural for me to retaliate. It's natural, but how many of us have the common courtesy and collectability to address brother as another brother from man-to-man standpoint? Very few, because we haven't been taught that skill as a man. We've been emasculated by our own self. We've been daily emasculated brother to brother. When you call that brother the N-word, you just emasculated him. In the process of emasculating yourself. Because you don't know who you are, and I'm guilty of the same thing. I've done it as well. But when you know better, you should do better. And how will you ever know better unless you take and put forth the effort that you need to secure better things, and secure your knowledge, and secure your place in your household, and secure your masculinity? Anybody else want to come in? Come on,
That was some good stuff. I first want to comment on the difficulty I had with the questions when I got them from Lewis about masculinity. I had read them when I went at home, and I was like, this is tough. This is a tough word to define, and how could we define this? And then Dr. Mason brought up, we got to be careful about putting masculinity in a category, because then when we put it in a category, we start thinking that this is what it is when it could be this. I think we got lost in the masculinity thing when you brought up some good things about the ego, and when you brought up that scenario, that little skit right there, you caught me off guard. I'm like, I said, man, I'm just getting off work. This guy scared something. But I said, but when it came to masculinity with me, I think it was there at one time. No one gave us what masculinity was. I think we did know what it was, but it was way back in Africa. And then I think when we got bought here, it's funny, right? I think when we got bought here as slaves, when the black male had got split, in the beginning of the black male getting split from from the family, the woman started to see the less of a role that she really needed him. That was one start, I thought. So masculinity had went somewhere. Then it got into 50, 60, the welfare started reform coming. They really split us. But when the drugs really came, it really split us. So it was easy for me to grab on what I thought was masculinity through a movie. I still watch Superfly, and I know the black exploitations today movies are funny to me, but a little in the 20s, they weren't so funny. They was hip, cool, and slick. They was fly. Them cats was that deal. So I kind of like